Okay, thank you everyone for coming. This is a workshop on Chrome extensions. Oh, there we go. So I'm going to start by giving like a brief overview of what the different parts of an extension are. Then I'm going to present the problem we're facing and what we're going to build to kind of solve it. So here's a quick breakdown. We'll go into more depth in later slides, but there are 4 parts that are going to be important to us right now. There's the manifest, which is actually important to every single Chrome extension. It's like the part that gives necessary information to the Chrome extension like website. It basically says, here's the name, here's the permissions, here are the description, etc. And you need all of that to build your extension. We have the background script, which interacts with the background, according to its name, that kind of makes sense. So this involves window actions, tab actions, and other things that kind of go on in the background. Then we have number 3, the content script. This is a script that interacts with the web pages themselves. So with content script, these are all in JavaScript, by the way, except for the manifest. With the content script, you kind of see what's on the page and interact with items on a page. Finally, we have the pop-up. So this is what appears when you click on the extension icon. If you guys use Chrome as your primary web browser, you might know what I'm talking about. It's when you install a Chrome extension and then you could click it and like it'll show you something. So let's make something. This is my problem. I procrastinate way too much. I feel like you guys might be able to relate. There are some websites that I spend way too much time browsing, and I need to curb my habits. I want to develop a Chrome extension to track my website visits and encourage good studying habits. In particular, whenever I visit a particular site, I want Chrome to notify me with a reminder to study. Moreover, I want all the images on the website to black out to prevent me from browsing. And finally, I want to maintain a log of all of my visits that I can access easily and just kind of look on my own time to see how I'm doing with my studying and stuff. And now I'm just rewriting everything from this slide, but in a more logical form. So this is chronologically how we're gonna face this problem, and we're breaking it down into steps to make it easier to process. So my problem is that, okay, I'm gonna think of one website that I am on a lot. So like you guys think, maybe you could put in the chat, like what are some websites that you are on way too much? For me, I can think of a few. There is like Facebook, there is YouTube, Reddit, like there are a bunch of them I could think of. And we could set up little listeners for like every single one of those, but we're gonna focus on one today. I'm gonna choose to go with YouTube. But yeah, so I want to flag whenever I visit YouTube. And the way I'm gonna do that is I'm gonna set up a function to detect URL changes. And this is gonna be through the tabs API provided by Chrome. And then when I see that the URL has changed, I'm going to check that URL and say, like, is this a site that is YouTube? From there, I want that URL change to display a reminder. And this is going to be, we're going to be doing this through the notifications API. And for this, we need to specify options and then create the notification. We'll get into that a little more. These are just, the options are things that are required to make a notification, but they're fairly straightforward. The third thing I want to do is black out all the images. So I mentioned before that the background script deals with background actions like with windows and tabs. So when we flag the URL over here using the tabs API, that's going to be in the background script. So to black out the images, which are on the page of the actual website, I need to use the content script. So what's going to happen is that the URL flag is going to occur in the background script with the tabs API. And we want to send a message from the background script to the content script to kind of trigger this image blackout. So then we receive and process the message in content script, and then we proceed to modify the images. Finally, we want to display the timestamps in the little pop-ups that we have. So we're going to be using a storage API, also provided by Chrome, to do this. And what we're going to do is do something similar to what we did like right over here at 3A. So we're going to send a message to pop-up from background. And this is a typo. This is supposed to be popup.js, but yeah, we're going to receive and process the message and then modify the HTML to display the timestamps. So we're going to just get started. I will put this link in the chat. We're going to want to clone this repository. Actually, I could fit the chat on my screen. I think it's just better if I could see what you guys are saying. Yeah, I see Twitter, Reddit, YouTube, Instagram, Twitch. Yeah, that's yeah. YouTube, Netflix. Very cool. So yeah, just make sure I'll give you some time to clone this repository. And is there anyone who's not cloning it or who doesn't know how to do that? Okay, that's perfect. So if everyone could kind of put in the chat when you are yeah, you could just use the desktop app. That's what I use actually. I use GitHub desktop to like clone my things. Okay, perfect. And once you clone it to the desktop app, you could like open it using the text editor of your choice. But yeah, let me know in the chat when you're done. While we're waiting, we can kind of go over what the contents of the repository are. So we have these, we already talked about the manifests, then we have the pop-up background and content scripts. Those are all in JavaScript. The pop-up.html is just kind of the visual of the pop-up itself. This blurb goes more into detail about what these do exactly. So the manifest provides important information about your extension, like the name, permissions, scripts, etc. And we're gonna see that, like, I think that's the next slide actually. The pop-up files affect the appearance of the extensions window in the browser. The background script manages and monitors browser events like navigating to a new page, removing a bookmark, or closing a tab. And the content script can interact with the content of the websites you visit. So far, only Ashley has said that like she's done cloning. Is like everyone done? Okay, done. Okay, cool. Great. So now we want to populate the manifest. So in the repository you just cloned, it's already populated for you, but we can kind of go through what it looks like. So let's see, where is my code? Oh, wait a minute. It's right here. There we go. Forgot I had it there. So first we have the very basics, which is the name, version, and description. These could be whatever you want. The version just kind of indicates like what iteration of the project you're on. Okay, yeah, the slides, I will post that afterwards. Let me see if I could actually just do that right now, if it would be helpful for you guys. There you go. So yeah, this can be whatever you want. The manifest version, this is just for Chrome. It always has to be 2. That's just so Chrome knows like what to expect. Permissions, basically, it kind of gives an outline of like what APIs you're going to want to access. Not all APIs require permissions, but I just populated one of them that we'll need, which is tabs. The background outlines like, the background script. So this is going to be the thing we're using for background actions. And persistent, we're going to set to false. So this basically means that we only want our extension to run when an event happens. Like it's not going to be always running. It'll be based on like certain triggers. And that's usually the case for Chrome extensions, at least in my experience. Then we have this content scripts block, which gives information about the content scripts we'll be using. So these are all required. I think these 2 are required. So this is the JavaScript file we'll be using. And matches just indicates like what websites will be affected by the content scripts. And this kind of captures all websites. And run at document N indicates that I only want my extension to run, or like the content script to run, when the page is done loading. Finally, we have browser action, and this is just kind of outlining details about the pop-up, and all we need is really the pop-up.html. Okay. So now that we have the repository like download and open, so make sure you know where it is, because we're going to go to Chrome extensions. I will actually, I have it open over here. I'll post that in the chat. So you're gonna want to go to Chrome extensions, and I'm assuming that everyone is using Chrome right now. You have to use Chrome to work on Chrome extensions, but navigate to that page, and you're gonna see something like this. And what you're gonna want to do is click developer mode, or like click on the toggle next to developer mode to turn it on. And with this, you're going to see some new buttons, and this just allows you to load your own Chrome extensions into this this pool that you have. If you need me to slow down, just let me know. So there are 3 buttons here. There's load, unpacked, pack extension, and update. We're going to click on load unpacked, and then we are going to find wherever it is on your computer, you're going to find the repository. And let me think about where it is for a second. Yeah, GitHub. Yeah, right here. And you're not going to click on like Pre-HackHERS Chrome extension. You're going to go into that and click on Site Checker. This is going to be the thing you unpack. You select it, and then it should be in the thing. And if there are any errors, it'll tell you. So, we have it. There are no errors, and it does nothing so far, but we have it here, which is great. So let's start coding. Yeah, we're just gonna get into it. Sorry, wrong tab. I need to, sorry. I gotta cut that out later. There we go. So we're gonna start at the background page. So we're gonna refer back to like this part in the slides where let me just build. Yeah, let's go through this task like step by step. So we're going to start with like flagging URL changes. So we're going to use the tabs API. And something great about Chrome is that they have a bunch of sites where they document all their APIs. You'll notice here that this API is part of the deprecated Chrome apps platform. That doesn't affect us because Chrome apps and Chrome extensions are different, and they will continue supporting Chrome extensions, just not apps. So don't worry about the deprecation warning. So we're going to want to use this, and on your own time, if you want to like look through the different things you could do with this, it's really cool. You could create new tabs, you could duplicate, you could zoom in and reload, remove, everything. But what we want to do is use these events. So these are listeners, and you want to go to unupdated, and I'm not asking you to like go to the site, but I'm just like showing you where the information is. So what we're gonna do is, give me 1 second. In the background script, background.js, we're gonna go to where it says listen for tab changes, and we're gonna put chrome.tabs.on. So what this does is it sets up a listener that will be triggered when any Chrome tab is updated. And when it is updated inside this add listener, so we're gonna have what's called a callback function in this like add listener function. And what this is basically like, okay, so once you're done listening, what do you want to do? That's what it's asking. So the syntax for a callback function is function ID. Oh. And then you have the brackets. And then something happens in here. So the parameters in this callback function depend on the listener and depend on like whatever is over here. So right now we're listening for updates, and the update function has a callback function that returns a tab ID of the updated tab, the changed information of the updated tab, as well as the tab itself. So when I say the tab itself, like what do I mean? What does that even look like? What we're gonna do is we're gonna kind of see where we're gonna parse through that information by doing console.log tab. And while we're at it, I'm gonna copy and paste and do console.log change info. And you'll see in a second, I'll be able to look at this information and just like see what is contained in these things. And tab ID is just a number, so we're not really gonna look at that. So yeah, I am going to go back to my extensions page. I'm going to refresh. I don't need to unpack it. I just need to refresh. And I'm going to open the background page. So what this is when you go to the console tab, this is a debugging console that allows you to kind of print out things. So, you know, when you're coding in like one of your classes, if you want to understand the flow of your program, you are going to want to do like system.out.print to kind of print out little words here and there to make sure that you're on the right track, to make sure you have like checkpoints and you're meeting them. So what I'm going to do is just take any tab and I'm going to like update it. So I'm going to like, let's go to YouTube. So there we go. All of this, as the page is loading, there are a bunch of updates and all of that is printed here. So let's just kind of go through it. We're not going to go through everyone, but we're just going to get an idea. So I first printed out the tab itself. So I'm on this tab, and this is the information of the tab. We see that it's active, which means I'm currently on it. It's audible, which it's not audible actually because it's false, which means it's not making any noise. Then there's some other information. I'm not quite sure what this means, but it just has like, you know, a bunch of information. That's the ID. It's highlighted, which means like I'm, you know, on it. And yeah, it has a lot of information. This is what a tab object looks like. And then right below that, we see the change info. So what exactly was the change that caused the update function to trigger? So the status was made loading and the URL was made youtube.com. And then that repeats a few times because there are different kinds of like change information, so the favicon updates, the title updates, etc. So that's the console. And like, there's a slide in the slideshow that kind of goes over the different kinds of console.logs, but I'm not gonna really go over it right now. We'll see as we move along. But yeah, we have that. So give me a second. Yeah, now we don't really need that. So we know what it prints, but we want something else to happen. So instead of sum function here, I'm gonna put check, because that's really the action I want to occur. And in this callback function, I'm going to call this function up here. So check website. And I'm just gonna add all of these parameters. And just as a side note, I could very easily just put all my logic from like all the logic that's required for this in this chunk over here, but I just want to kind of separate things just so it's easier to process what each individual block of code is doing. So I'm going to call check website and pass in these parameters over here. So with that, I change the name of the function, and then I will change the parameters as well. So now I want to do something. I have a way to check when the tab is updated, but now I want to check the URL. So as we saw before in the information, the change info doesn't always have the information we need. So what we first want to do is check if the change info has a URL. So .url. And what this does is it checks if it exists. We can ignore the initialize options right now, as well as the send messages. We're just gonna focus on flagging when I visit YouTube. So after this, I want to, so I've confirmed that the URL exists in the change info, and I'm going to put in another if statement to see if the change info includes the website I'm trying to block. So .url includes. And this is just the JavaScript function that checks if like a substring exists. So let's see if it works. So I'm gonna do console.log. And now whenever I visit a YouTube page, I should see in the background, like console, the result. So I should see YouTube prints it out when I visit YouTube. It was already open. There were no updates here. So I'm gonna like just click on this random video. Oh, I see YouTube. Good for her. So now I'm on YouTube again, and Jenna Marbles, yay. So you see that YouTube is being printed out, like it has been printed out 3 times with each page visit. I have YouTube being printed out now 4. So it works, yay, great. But we do want to implement one small thing. So, for me, I don't want this Chrome extension to always be bothering me if I visit, like, if I'm on YouTube already and I visit a bunch of pages in succession. So what I'm going to do is keep track of the last website I visited. So if I'm on YouTube and it's like a part of a session, I'm not going to be bombarded with those notifications. I'm just going to get that initial like, hey, you should study, and then I'll proceed with my day. So what I'm going to do is just set a variable called I'm going to set it equal to an empty string at first. And then when the change info URL does include YouTube, I'm going to update last website. And with that, I will also include an else statement. So if the change URL does not include YouTube, that means I'm not on YouTube. And I could set the last website to null again, because when I visit YouTube again, I want it to be triggered. So yeah, that's it with that. And give me 1 second. I'm making sure I'm not missing anything before we move on. Yeah, okay. So now we're going to move on to notifications, because we already have the triggering aspect here. So now we can just create that little reminder to study. So what I want to do is initialize some options for notification. And you could look more into this in the documentation, but basically there are some things that are required for notifications, and we're just going to do those required things here. So I'm going to declare a variable called opt for options, and I'm going to set it equal to something in a bunch of braces. So first thing is I'm going to do the icon URL icon, and I'm going to set that equal to ./img/icon.png. And this is all in the repository you guys already downloaded, so you have the images in the file system. Type is going to be basic. Also, don't forget a comma to make sure like you separate these different pieces of data. Basic Yeah, that just means the notification is going to be a standard one. Priority is 1. This means that out of all notifications, I want this one to be the first one that shows up. If I have a bunch of notifications going up at the same time. Title can be whatever you want. So I'm going to say, hey, you. And then the message is going to be, you should be studying. Again, and so yeah, now we have our options, and going about creating the notification itself is actually really easy. Something real quick that I forgot to do is that you have to go back to manifest, and you're gonna add notifications as another permission right after tabs, and this allows you to make those notifications. So back in background script, I want this notification to go off after I have this command. So like if the change URL includes YouTube, I'm gonna last subject set to YouTube, and I'm gonna create that notification. So the syntax for that is chrome.notifications. The first thing is empty. I don't remember off the top of my head what the first parameter is exactly, but we could leave it empty. That's perfectly legal. I'm gonna specify opt, and then I'm also gonna have a function here. This is another callback function, but I'm gonna leave it empty. I like including them just in case I decide later that I want to include a callback function, but for now, let's just leave it empty. It's just gonna be function, then a set of parentheses, then a set of curly braces. And with that, we could go on because that's all you need for notifications. And we're going to refresh our page, and then I see an error. So let's see what's wrong. Give me a second. Oh, notifications. Refresh, and I'm going to visit YouTube again. But I have to go to a different site and then return to YouTube because if I don't, then it won't work. Yeah, so we see that you guys don't see the notification because I am on a second screen. I will switch screens real quickly to show you guys what it would look like. Stop share. Also make sure that your notifications are like on. So don't put on do not disturb. So right now I'm on Reddit. This is not YouTube, but when I go to YouTube, interesting. So I'm not sure why it's not. Oh, okay. Let me try again. I go to YouTube. There we go. Now it's working. So now I get the notification saying, hey, you should be studying. And I'm going to switch back to my other screen. And you guys won't see the notifications as they go off on my second screen, but just know that they'll be going off, and like for every time I visit YouTube, a notification will be created. And so with that, we are done with the notifications part. And from here, it's time to change all these images. So I don't want to see these videos. I don't want them to tempt me. I'm going to black them all out. And to do this, I have to send a message to my, wait, I saw that there was something in the chat. Oh yeah, so the notifications error, I fixed it by adding an S in the manifest. So my problem was that there was a typo. I forgot the S. And yeah, so I'm gonna go to background script, and I'm gonna see like there's a little comment saying send messages to other scripts. So here is where I'm going to send a message to the content script. So I'm gonna write some stuff now, and I'll explain what it does. But basically, I'm gonna write chrome.tabs.query parentheses open curly brace no comma, just active true. Then after the curly brace, I'm going to do comma. Function. Okay, so I'll give you guys a second to like write that down. What this does is this is basically I'm asking Chrome to search through all the tabs I have open and find the ones that are active. So the one that's active here is this single page that I'm currently on. It's active because I'm on it. So that's all that's necessary because I want to because the one that's active is going to be the one that is like flagged, you know. I'm on YouTube, so this active true will get the current site I'm on, which is YouTube. And this callback function will take in the tabs. So what this does is it gets all the tabs that are currently active, and you can put other parameters here too to get like, you know, a set of tabs. But this tabs array will only contain one item. And we're actually not even going to use this tabs in like this logic, but within this, I'm going to say home.extension on port.post message. Did I? Chrome. Thank you for pointing that out. Port.post message. And then I'm gonna call this change. Okay. So what this does is it establishes a connection, and it kind of creates a port, which is basically an endpoint for communication. So it establishes a port and it creates that, and it says post message. So what this does is it's making background.js broadcast this message, change images, to all of the scripts in our repository. And now that I'm looking at it, so you would do this kind of thing with the tabs.query. Say I wanted to send like the name of the tab I'm currently on to the content script, I would use the chrome.tabs.query. But I'm looking at it again, and I actually don't need this part. We're going to leave it because it doesn't affect us either way. But I'm not going to use tabs in this block here. So in the end, I don't really need this outer part. But if I were to send information about the current tab I'm on to the content script, I would include it. So I'm gonna do port.post message change images, and then I need some way to catch it in the content script. So here I'm gonna set up a message listener. And well, first actually I'm gonna create the port itself. So let me do something real quick. Create the port. I'm gonna do var port is equal to extension connect. And I'm gonna call this, I can give this whatever name I want. So I'm just gonna call it CBG for like content and then background, because that's the connection we're looking at. What you put here, it doesn't really matter. But we're gonna go down to set up message listener. Is it add.listener? I think you're referring to list and thank you. So we're gonna set up another listener here. I'm gonna do port.on message dot message, and then we're gonna do something in here. So the callback here is the message. So basically this says like, okay, if we receive a message from a different script, we're gonna take that message and we're gonna print it out. And right now we're in the content script. So the console we're looking at is gonna be different. So let's see what this does. I'm going to reload this, and I'm gonna go to YouTube, and what I'm gonna do is right click, inspect, which opens up the content console. and I'm going to look over here. All of these are because of YouTube. You don't have to worry about these. These are just, yeah, things going on their end. We don't need to look at it. So I'm going to go to a different page and then back to YouTube. And we're going to see updates. Give it a second. So I think I have an error somewhere. Because I'm posting the thing here. Oh, okay, wait. Let me. We are running into some technical difficulties. I believe I made a mistake somewhere. Oh wait, maybe it's because of. Oh, there we go. I had an error here. Don't put a semicolon after the name in port. Oh yeah, Jesse caught that. Yeah. I need to refresh it. Okay, so now I see message received, change images. Okay, great. So we have the message, it's going out, and like that's great. Okay, next thing we want to do is, so we are going to get this message and we're going to check it. So if message is equal to change images, then we're going to call blackout images. And in JavaScript, we use 3 equal signs. Call blackout images. And here is where we actually interact with the page itself. So what I'm going to do is say var images is equal to document. I'm going to put that as img. What this does is that it reads the page I'm on, the document I'm on, and it gets every single item on this page that is labeled as an image. And I'm going to put all of those elements into an array called images. So then after this, I'm going to want to modify those images by doing a for loop to loop through all of them and changing the source. So for var I is equal to 0. Let's say L is equal to images. And then I is less than L. I'm going to do I plus plus. So here I just kind of, don't do a semicolon here, do a comma. So var I equals 0, comma, L equals images.length, semicolon, I is less than L, semicolon, I plus plus. I'm going to do images I dot src is equal to /icon dot p. Okay, no, not icon. It's called black square. So I'm going to do img slash black square dot jpg. What this does is it changes all the images on the page to this black square. So let's see. I'm going to remove this error message here. Yeah, so we see here, we don't see any of the images, which is just what we want. It's not necessarily the black square, but the purpose is met. We no longer see the images. Perfect. So now we can move on to doing the pop-up. So let's go to pop-up.html. There are two things we want to add in this. So here we can actually see it in action. So we have the little icon here, and if we click this little puzzle piece, we could select site checker to pin. And if we do that, we could click on site checker and we could see what's already in pop-up.html. We have that timestamp h1 tag, and it just displays that. But what we want to add to this pop-up HTML file is a p, excuse me, the ID is ts for timestamp. Oh, do an ending here. So this just creates a paragraph like element, and we're giving it the ID of ts. And later we're going to change this and actually put things in here. But for the file itself, we don't need to put anything in there. And then right before the end of like HTML, we're going to inject the script. So this is how we make the connection between the pop-up script, the pop-up JavaScript, and then the pop-up HTML file. So source is equal to pop-up JavaScript, and then we're going to close the script. That's all we need to do. So this is really it for this pop-up.html. We don't need to add anything else. This will do just fine. And we're going to modify it in pop-up.javascript. So now we need to add the port to popup.js. And this is very similar to what we just did in content. So what would be great actually, if you could just copy and paste the port creation. And I'm gonna call this now PG. I'm going to also copy and paste the port on message thing right underneath here. And yeah, we've done a bunch of work here. So let's see. We will move back to this. We're gonna change this message eventually. Also delete blackout images because yeah, we're gonna do something else here. And we are going to change the like check eventually later on. But right now we're going to go back. So let's kind of refresh and go back to our thing. So we've already done the flagging the URL changes. We've done the displaying reminders, and we've done the blackout images. So now we want to store new visits into an array using the storage API. So first, we're going to go to the manifest, and then we're going to add the last permission we need for this project, which is called just store. And what storage is, it's saved in Chrome with your session. So once you quit Chrome, all this local storage is gone. But for a single session, you could add objects and little pieces of information in this kind of place in Chrome. And it's convenient to use. You could also send messages in the same way we did with the ports here. But with the objects we're going to be working with, it's just, I think it's easier to work with them in storage because you kind of see how they're laid out in terms of their structure. So we're going to use storage. And what we want to do is go back to the background script. And we're going to scroll all the way down. And we're going to go to where it says set up object in storage. I'm going to pause and add a little side note. The structure of the code does matter. We see that we have check website and like last website, the function, the variable, all before the listeners occur and all of this stuff happens. So what this is doing is it's basically, so in your regular coding class, like you can't use a variable before you declare it, right? The same goes for functions. So I won't be able to use this function. I won't know what it is unless it like is declared by the time I call it. So I call check website down here, and this is perfectly legal because I've already established and like initialized it up here. So that's the reason why I'm kind of ordering it in this way. And then once everything is like initialized, I can actually go into like the actions I want to do. Like I could go into setting up the listeners and stuff. So at the very end, I'm just going to set up objects in storage. And And the syntax for this is storage, or no, chrome.storage .sync open parentheses, then curly braces. And this could be anything I want. This is basically saying I'm making an object called timestamps in my storage, in my local storage. So I actually also want to have more control over what the object is exactly. So I'm going to create a variable called, and I'm going to set it equal to an empty array. And this basically says, okay, timestamps is a variable of type array, and I'm going to set timestamps as timestamps. So the second timestamps refers to the variable I just created, and this in green is referring to the new object I want to set in storage. After this, there's another callback function. So I'm going to do function something, and I'm going to do like console.log. Timestamps set. In the interest of time, I'm not going to show the, I see I have a typo there. I'm not going to go over or like look at that message just now because we're kind of running out of time and I want to get through all of this. We're almost done though. So yeah, after we set up the storage, we want some way to modify it. So what we're going to do is scroll up and go back to that if block where we have where is it? Yeah. When change info.url includes YouTube. So after I create the notification, I'm going to update the storage. And to do this, I need to get it. So get what's already stored, modify it, and then set it. So I'm going to start with the get action. So the syntax is very similar. Chrome.storage.sync. And then I'm going to do function results. Okay, make sure to add the semicolon. JavaScript is not as strict as Java or other programming language with regard to like where you add colons, but I like adding them just for the sake of consistency. So result is basically what I get back when I try to get timestamps. And keep in mind that the result is all of storage. So you're going to want to specify timestamps by doing result.timestamps. So I'm going to do variable temp equal to result.timestamps just to set it somewhere. My bad. So now temp is my array of timestamps. And I'm going to do temp.push. And what I want to do is push my dates. So the first time this happens, I'm going to so timestamps is set as an empty array down here. And the first time I visit YouTube, it's going to get that empty array and then push an item onto it. And then after the push, it's going to, we could actually copy and paste this right after. So copy and paste the storage sync set right below the push. Do that. And instead of timestamps, it's going to be temp because that's the thing we're modifying. And the question here is like, what exactly are we pushing? So we're going to use JavaScript to do this, a JavaScript function that is. So we're going to do new date, then like the parentheses, .to locale string locale. Okay, that was a lot. So yeah, make sure you got all of this. So we have the chrome.storage.sync.get to get the timestamps from storage. We get the we set a temp variable to that array that we just got, and then we modify that array by pushing a new date onto it, and then we reset the timestamps using temp. So now now in storage, timestamp has that extra timestamp that was just added. Okay, very fun. So we want now is to send this to pop-up script. So where it says we're going to go back to send messages to other scripts, and we are going to.
Hello?
Yes, hi.
Hey Sam, you spelled Chrome wrong on line 27 or 24.
Again.
24.
24. Oh, Chom. Why do I keep on doing Chom? Thank you for pointing that out. Okay, cool. Yeah. So now we're going to send another message, and we're going to use the same syntax here. So chrome.extension.onConnect.addListener function port. We're going to copy this little block here. I'm going to add a semicolon. Copy that, and right after we're going to add another one. And we're going to call change images to like update times. And this message is going to be anything. I just want to, call it update times. And the reason why we don't do two post messages like one after the other, so something that you might think might be right, is just not including this block and just doing port.postMessage, port.postMessage. That doesn't work because once the port receives a message, it's closed. So the attempt to post a message again doesn't work. So you need to open up another port and post another message. Okay, so now we can go back to the pop-up script and we can receive it in the same way we received the message in the content script. So, hold on. Yeah, so instead of change images, we're gonna do update times. And we're gonna call update timestamps. And before we actually modify any HTML, we want to make sure that it works. So we're going to do console.log. And so far, we've seen two locations for our console.log to be, and it always depends on what, from where you're calling console.log. So when we call it from background script, it's going to be in this background script here, this background page. When we call from content script, it's going to be over here with the content. And then when we have popup.js and we're calling console.log, what we're going to do is we'll first refresh it to make sure everything is up to date and we don't see any errors. So we are going to open up the pop-up, then right click within the pop-up and do inspect. And this brings up a similar console. And okay, not sure why we're seeing that, but it shouldn't, we don't need to worry about it. A lot of time, like those warnings or those errors, like they don't actually affect the functionality. So right now we're going to ignore it and we're going to check. Okay, yeah, so give me a second. I need to reopen the. Okay, so we see in the console of the pop-up, it worked. We not only receive, I think I just have these in there, so ignore these messages, but we see that it worked and the pop-up script is successfully receiving the message from the background script. Great. So yeah, I'm gonna comment that out so we don't see that anymore. And now we can go along to actually print out whatever's in the array. And the way we do that is by getting the timestamps again. So let's go back to the background script and copy this chunk. So when we actually get things, we're going to do that same getting action from within update timestamps. And we can save everything up until like var temp equals result.timestamps, and we can delete the pushing and the setting because we're not updating anything. We just want to display things here. So we have var temp equals result.timestamps, and what we want to do is we're going to do document dot get ID. Yes. So first, sorry about that. Wait a second. I messed up. Yes, then you do the dot inner HTML. And what we want to do is like reset before we update the display. We want to reset it and like have nothing there. So we're starting with a clean slate each time we update. There are other ways to do this, but for now we're just gonna, just do that right off the bat. And then we're gonna do before I equals 0, I less than let me see, timestamps dot length. So we can do temp dot length. I plus. Then within this for loop, what we're gonna do is print out the each timestamp one by one by modifying the inner HTML. So right now there's nothing there, but what we want to do is do this. So I just copied and pasted. And then instead of equals, I'm going to do plus equals because we're adding to the HTML with each time we iterate. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a p tag. Then we're going to do plus temp I. And then that's it, actually. We just need to do the p tag. And then maybe for good practice, we could add the closing tag. And with that, we should see the things. Let me see. Yeah, so we're going to ignore that error for now. And we're going to visit some pages and then go back to YouTube. And then hopefully when we click this, we will see a timestamp. Perfect. So that is, okay, so that's basically it. That's like, we're done with the extension. That was all the content you need to know. I will continue speaking about it for the last few minutes. If you guys need to go, feel free to go. Thank you for coming. But I will continue to speak on it a little more just for some closing thoughts. So yeah, we see the timestamps being updated, and say I visit YouTube again, I will see the added timestamp. So I see 2 of them here now. Whew, so that was a lot, and this is it. I will push all this to the repository so it's like, up to date and it's not just an empty like repository. But that is it for the code. And let me just revisit the slideshow. Having a manifest, we did this, and this is a little note about console.log and the different ways you could use it. So we've already seen it in all of these ways: background, pop-up content, and just different ways to see your comments. And then this is the final result. We have established that like we could update the timestamps here, we could display these notifications, and then we update all the images and black them out. And this is kind of the now what. So this is a very basic Chrome extension, but it's up to you to like think about what features that can be added and what things can be modified about it. So if we did have extra time, I would ask you guys to think about ways we could improve this Chrome extension, or think of ways we could add features. So like, do we always want to block every single page on our chosen website? Like sometimes I use YouTube to study. Like what if I want to watch those kinds of videos? Will I still be like bombarded with notifications? Are there any bugs with the current implementation? What corner cases have we considered? Things like that. Another thing that's really great is to check out the Chrome API documentation for inspiration if you ever want to like build your own Chrome extension from scratch. There is a bunch of great stuff here, so I'll put this in the chat. Bam. And so I will take the time now for questions and leave it on the screen where you could visit the dev post and also our website. So hope you all stay safe and happy. Join us next week for an Intro to React workshop. And thank you for staying a few minutes over. I'll be taking questions now. Otherwise, have a great night, guys.